This is episode 45 with Fadela Hilali.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, and a big welcome to the first new episode of 2017. If you've been listening, you'll know that last week we reran the episode on productivity and goal setting with Diana Fitz, but I'm back with a new episode this week, and I couldn't be more excited to be welcoming on Fadela Hilali for episode 45. Now, in case you haven't heard of her, Fadela is a coach, speaker, and author specializing in helping busy, successful entrepreneurs who thrive in business but lack in their personal life and their well-being. Despite her professional achievements and the recognition of her peers, Fadela just couldn't fill the emotional void she felt in her own personal life. She thought that if things around her changed, she would eventually feel happy. But she then learned to trust and love herself by letting go of things and people that didn't serve her, breaking down her dreams into smaller steps and embracing the motto of, I can be happy now while building the life that she wanted. In her new book, Stuffed, Fadela helps readers explore the complex relationship between our beliefs, emotional habits, and food. Now, food is only one way people use to feel stuffed, and Fadela focuses on the individual patterns and beliefs that lead countless successful individuals to feeling empty. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how Fadela figured out what she wanted to do in her life, why crappy jobs are just as valuable as the good ones, how to deal with I'll be happy when, why we think we're not already good enough, why we're comparing ourselves more than ever before, and Fadela's top tip for dealing with self-doubt. As always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/045. But for now, let's go hang out with Fadela. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm speaking to Fadela Hilali. Fadela, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so Fadela, I'd love for you to tell people, first of all, we got introduced via Jason, who I interviewed in episode 19, and he was like, you've got to get Fadela on, she's really awesome in the work that she's doing, and she'd be a really good guest. So for people listening, why don't you tell us a bit about who you are and, a bit about your quarter life journey as well?
Yeah, for sure. Jason did introduce us, and I was really excited to find out about your podcast, which I wish existed when I was in my mid-20s, early 20s. So what I do is that I'm a coach, and I specialize in emotional well-being. So people mainly come to me when they're struggling with their self-love, their confidence, and that obviously will have repercussions on how they show up in life, the sort of career projection, and also their relationships in general, whether it's at work or in their personal life. And I do have quite a few people in their 20s as clients, which is always an interesting one because I had such a rough time in my 20s, really, really hard time just figuring out what I wanted, just liking myself, really. That was the biggest challenge. So today I try to do as much work on authenticity and building resilience, just to allow people to enjoy the journey. So it's not this living on standby, like I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be proud of myself when that happens. And just really being in the journey and enjoying the different steps and challenges that come with it.
Yeah, and there's so much I want to go into there. But let's go back to, you said you wish that this had existed in your 20s or your early 20s. And you're a life coach now, and you've had professional achievements and the recognition of your peers. But I've read on your website that you said you felt like you couldn't fill the emotional void that you felt in your personal life. I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. So for me, it's kind of been a constant. I've always had, on paper, great achievements, even growing up. I mean, I was always in the top of my class. I had lots of friends. But deep down, I always felt like I was a bit of a fraud, which kind of translated in me going into extremes. So, at work, I'd be very first jobs, we're talking, early 20s here. First jobs, I'd be really cheerful and jolly at work. And then I would come home and feel completely drained because somehow I didn't think that was really me. I was trying to boost things in a way that felt very tiring. And in terms of achievements, because I constantly felt like I was lacking something, like I used food a lot to fill that emotional void because food was my friend, food was non-judgmental, and food was just the number one way to just numb. Like there was no problem that wouldn't get put on hold with, shoveling a couple of cookies on top of it. It worked, but unfortunately, as you will know from, other people you work with or just from your experience, it backfires because you feel okay in the moment, but then after that follows the guilt and the self-loathing, which doesn't really help with feeling insecure as a 20 someone. But it also makes you feel worse as a result. And it's not something that you advertise. It's not something that people get necessarily. A lot of people eat emotionally, but no one talks about it. We just look at it as something that, it's just kind of you treat yourself. But some of us go beyond that. But because it's not necessarily something that's obvious, conspicuous, it's not like anorexia where you can see it. You can see there is something wrong with the person. Insecurities, emotional eating, and just lack of self-love is not apparent. So you just carry it as a secret. And as you will know, secrecy fuels shame. So that, just fuels into that cycle. Like, I'm not good enough. What do I do with my life? I'll never be as good as, Susie and John and whoever.
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to get into the sort of self-image stuff a lot in this episode. It's something that I told you before we started recording. I think it's a really important thing to be talking about in this age group. And I haven't got into that much in the podcast. So I'm excited to speak about that with you. But I'm just interested to hear, you mentioned also in your introduction that you didn't really know what you wanted to do. And how did you start figuring that out?
I mean, I started off in life with being crystal clear on what I wanted, and then adolescence happened, and it all went out the window. So growing up, I knew I wanted to help people, and as a young teenager, like that kind of translates into charity work. I wanted to work for the UN, do humanitarian stuff. And then after going to university or in uni, when you're picking your majors and, specialties and stuff, I realized that I had no clue. Like, you don't go from being 18 to working for the UN just like that. So for me, it's taken a lot of trial and error. But unfortunately, what I wish I knew at the time is that it's normal to change your mind about what you want to do. It's okay. Like something might look fantastic on paper. And, I used to think I would always want to work for a charity. And I love what charities do. I really respect the work and the necessity of it. However, for me as a person, it's not necessarily the best fit. I love helping and I love being part of charitable initiatives, but it's not something that I could do for the rest of my life. So I did it, and that was okay. So the advice I usually give for people who were where I was, 10 years ago, is to just give it a go. Try it. Even the jobs that feel horrendous and that just make you want to curl up into a ball and cry every time you go back home, are opportunities for you to figure out what you're definitely not going to pursue. Yeah. That's also valuable insights. And we don't get that. And you can change your mind. That's okay. We're in a generation where we have so many options, so many opportunities. It's not like for our parents where, you study to be a doctor and you're a doctor. You study to be an architect and that's what you are. We have so many different avenues. So to me, the trick is just to be open to learning and to realize that your journey is not going to be linear, and that's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah, that's something I keep hearing from guests on my show. Is like how it's not a linear thing, and it's more like jumping from lily pad to lily pad, or stepping stone to stepping stone. And I love that you mentioned that there are different opportunities, and I think that's only going to increase as technology and everything else advances. So I think that was really valuable, and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Something you touched on earlier was that kind of destination mentality, that I'll be happy when things around me change, or when this person does that, or when I get that job, or those people like me. And this is a huge thing. It's something that I see a lot of people mentioning and experiencing. And how do we sort of deal with that and start changing that voice?
Well, that's actually realizing that when we are so focused on an outcome, and that it's almost like we deny everything else that happens in between us and the outcome, we're not being present. We're not being present. And it's just remembering what it is that we want from, say, getting that job. Okay, I want to be a coach, example. So what is it about coaching that I really like? Oh, I want to be able to help people. I love the one-on-one interaction, blah, blah, blah. Now, if I'm so focused on that and I'm still currently in a full-time job, I am missing out all of the opportunities to interact with people who could potentially be coaching clients one day. So I'm ignoring everybody else around me, including colleagues, because, oh, no. Like, I want to do coaching. This isn't a charity. Like, I don't care about these guys. And it's, again, this almost being blind to what is. And these people are actually stepping stones as well, and contacts that will allow you to get somewhere else. It's not because they're not obviously linked to your goal that the opportunities aren't there. And it's the same for everything. It's the enjoyment as well. How do you show up when you're miserable because you haven't achieved X, Y, or Z? You show up as a miserable person who people don't really want to interact with. And, even if you were looking for your dream job, say like working for Facebook, and all of your Facebook posts have been rants about how life sucks and the recession and people. And, exactly. Like, what are you portraying?
Yeah, I really want to repeat what you just said. It's like, even if you have a vision for what you think you want, don't turn a blind eye to the things that are around you right now. Even if you think it's like a crappy job, and now suddenly you're going to tune out to everything that's right in front of you. I really love that insight. Thank you. And I think often this sort of destination mentality comes from a lot of like we feel the need to be perfect, or that everything has to be perfect.
Oh yeah.
And have you dealt with a lot of that, both yourself and with clients?
Yeah, I have. And it's so funny because people see me in coaching and they think it was just one of those natural progressions. Like, I fell into coaching kind of by accident. I was working for a charity, and it's one of those jobs. Like, I loved what the charity did and what my role was on paper, but my experience of it was not so great at the time. So from the day I started, I was already job hunting for something else. And it's only when I relaxed into it after 2 years and thinking like, hey, you've been applying for all these jobs, you're getting a little bit of the same, so you're just staying where you are because it's not worth it. So how about you just enjoy what you have right now, still keep your eyes wide open and see what happens. Don't be so miserable. And I did that, and my whole experience of work shifted. I realized that I had some amazing colleagues who are still really close friends today, and my whole attitude changed. And somehow we had a funding opportunity to coach some young people. So I'd been doing a little bit of work with young people at the time, so people in their early 20s. And because I was so, out and about and open and just connected to young people, they thought of me for the project. So we had funding for 2 years. I worked with these young people. Many of them used to be involved in gangs. And after that, I was hooked. I was like, this is it. this is it. I want to coach. But again, had I been, withdrawn and not interested in interacting with these people at my work because that's not what I want to do, that would have never come my way, ever.
Yeah,
so this is just
so great.
one example. And, it's one of my, coaching is my passion, and I would have missed that.
I love that. So you mentioned you've done some work with young adults. What are some of the common issues you see that they're going through, and some of the sort of pain points that they're experiencing?
I think it's, for me, what I see is a bit of restlessness. So a typical example would be, say, working on a business plan with some of the young people I've worked with. It's trying to get into going from having a small business that you're starting that's going to be successful to like, yes, and it's going to be, I'm just going to, invent a name. It's going to be coaching for pros, and it's going to be the coaching for pros group, and we're going to start, trains and planes, and it's just, it's like, it's a virgin, model, which is fantastic. I love the ambition, and it's great. But sometimes it feels so big, so unreachable, that they just end up paralyzed. So, bridging that gap between the business idea or job hunting for the dream job and actually getting there just seems so far away that they lose focus and also motivation. So what we do in those cases, and that's absolutely fine. Let's put it on hold just for a little bit. Let's park that for a second, the groups, the trains and the planes and all of that. And what's the most important thing we can focus on right now? Like, if we could only dedicate 2 hours this week because you're working full time, or, whatever else, studying, what would be the most important thing that would need to get done? And by sharpening that focus, they get that thing done. They feel good about it, and it's easier to build on it, as opposed to just getting lost on posting, 20 photos on Instagram that have nothing to do with the actual idea that needs to be, invested in. And everyone feels better, and it gives you that progression and a sense of accomplishment, as opposed to, like Jason, actually, he always talks about, low yielding activities and high yielding activities. And this is one of them. By picking the one priority, it helps people focus and feel more inclined to carry on with it.
Yeah, and this is also really helpful if someone's looking to start like a side gig while they've got their crappy job or their day job that they're trying to get out of. And I know I've got friends who've started side gigs that have now turned them into their full-time job. And they said a lot of people complain that, I don't have time to build a side business while I've got my job. But often when we have those time constraints, we are forced to work on like the things that are actually going to move the needle forward, and not, like you said, checking Facebook or things like that. So it can actually be a benefit to have limited time.
One of my clients is based in Morocco, and she has a full-time job for this international consultancy, and she actually loves what she does as a job. She happens to love it, but she's also very, very passionate about fashion and beauty. And she's built this blog on the side, just a hobby, but she likes it so much that she spends time on it, every day. And she's built a following in Morocco of like 20,000 people. She's invited to all these expos, gets all these products. She's now an expert within the blogging and the fashion beauty industry in Morocco. But it didn't feel painful for her to develop it, because she just did what felt important at the time, and realized that she didn't have 8 hours to dedicate to it. So she just did whatever she could do and moved on. But it felt lighthearted. So she was able to keep up with it and organically build a following.
Yeah, I've said before that I think everyone should start some sort of blog or journal or sort of project on the side. It's almost like, because we can work online now and from anywhere, it's almost like the idea of just doing something for a hobby has gone out the window, and we think we have to turn something into a business.
That's very true.
I've never thought of it that way, but yeah, it's like people have forgotten that you can actually just do something because you enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, this client in question, she doesn't want to quit her job. Like she likes her job, but she also likes her, her side gig, as you said.
Yeah, that's great. So I know, Fadela, we said that we wanted to get into the self-love and body image topic, and I do want to do that now. And you said that that's another thing you see a lot from your younger clients in the early 20s. Why do we get into this body image sort of negative spiral, thinking that we're not good enough?
Well, I think there's a lot of pressure in the media, and whether it's direct or indirect, but we've all developed these beauty standards and even success standards, like what it looks like to be successful, to be beautiful, and what we need to have in order to be loved. I remember for me, it was, when I lose 5 kilos or 10 pounds or however you want to count it, then I'll be able to find the kind of romantic partner I want to be with. And then I would, not have a fulfilling relationship and automatically link it to the fact that, oh, it's because I'm a little bit overweight. Surely that's why it didn't work out. So everything goes back to it. And it's this idea that we're not good enough as we are, and that we need to overcompensate, and that we can't be ourselves, because ourselves truly, if we were to open up to people, would kind of put them off or push them away. And it couldn't be further from the truth. It's actually quite the opposite. When we are vulnerable and when we are projecting this vibe of, hey, I feel comfortable in my own skin, it is so much more attractive, whether it's for work, whether it's for friendships, relationships, for everything, because we are okay. And going back to how we develop it, I mean, I really do think it's the language we use as well. Even around food. Oh, that was naughty. Oh, I've been so good this week. Oh, I didn't eat. Oh, I've been on a diet. And we get so much praise. Oh my God, like you've lost weight. Like you look amazing. And that reinforces this idea that somehow if we stayed how we were initially, that wasn't good enough. And we only get the praise when we've lost weight, when we made more money, when we're, more visible, whatever it is. So it's this idea that what we have is not enough, and we don't do it on purpose. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I used to be like that. If I saw a friend losing weight, like, oh my God, you look so beautiful. Wow, what'd you do? And we're just feeding into this narrative that we're not good enough unless we've lost weight, unless we make more money, unless we have the fancy job.
And do you think we're comparing ourselves, as young people today, do you think we're comparing ourselves more so than ever before? And if that is the case, then why do you think this is?
I definitely think so, because in the past, I mean, even when I was in high school, we didn't have Facebook and, Instagram and all of that, but we were still suffering from, comparing and despairing, where you would see such and such looking great, or going shopping with friends and they fit in this size and you don't, or, they have nicer clothes or whatever it is. But today, we're not only comparing ourselves to close friends, we're comparing ourselves to people in different continents who we know nothing about. It's everywhere. It's in our face. Like the first thing we do in the morning, I mean, I can't remember the statistic, but most people get on Facebook or Instagram first thing in the morning. So you're already flooding your brain with all of these images, sometimes unattainable ideals. And that is not a healthy, place to operate from. But the compare and despair is huge. It's there. And we're getting all these, marketing as well, like get slim in 5 days, like sales funnel in 2 days, double your Instagram following in 1 hour. And it's the quick fix. So somehow now we just want to get it done quickly. Say whether it's job, body, friendships, whatever it is. We've lost this perspective of, how long things take.
Yeah. And so it sounds like you've done a lot of that work, both personally and with clients, of sort of overcoming those voices. What are your tips if someone's listening to this and they do feel like they're not good enough right now, or they'll only be happy when they've hit a certain number on the scale, or something like that. What are your best pieces of advice for someone in that situation?
Well, I would say that they deserve better. They deserve better than to wait for something, whatever it is, something, someone to be happy. I think that it's about realizing that you can have big ambitions and big aspirations, and you can aim, to transform yourself into the best version of yourself. But that does not prevent you from being okay and feeling happy throughout the journey. So the biggest thing will be learning how to deal with self-doubt. And my advice, honestly, is to enlist a few friends who have a sense of humor. And whenever that voice starts to, talk and like, oh, you're just going to suck at that presentation. What? You interview? What is this? You put it on makeup? You're ugly. Go away. Just kind of de-dramatizing by talking about it. You'll never guess, like, this is what I thought the other day, and just making fun of it. Because our inner critic is always very extreme. It's either black, it's white. You're either amazing and you've done a great job, or you just suck and there's no hope for you. And it's realizing that those extremes are not based on evidence. They're just not. If you actually went to look at it and deconstruct it, it's all just thoughts, extreme thoughts. And we can retrain ourselves to say, like, okay, fair enough. You have a presentation tomorrow. You're not a pro. You're not Tony Robbins. We get that. That's totally fine. So what do we need to do? Okay, practice more. Let me practice more. And it's just learning to tweak it. Instead of going in a power struggle where it's just like, I'm just not going to care about what anybody says, blah, 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 blah. Or, I just suck. I'm not going to try. It's just getting into this gray area in the middle and see how you can navigate self-doubt, inner criticism, and just learning to be lighthearted with it, because it's pretty funny. Like, I've written a book and I look at all of my stories and anecdotes, and yeah, they crack me up today. But I was able to crack myself up at the time as well, to move on from it.
Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. And you mentioned your book, which I do want to talk about now. And I love the title. Why don't you go and tell us the title and just a bit of like what the book is all about? Sure.
So the title of the book is Stuffed: How to Feel So Good About Yourself You Won't Have Room for Cake. So it's essentially the idea that, the reason we tend to overeat, and, by the way, this does not just affect women or girls. Like, I have male clients as well as, female clients. And everyone looks at food as the culprit, as, the problem. Oh, it's because I eat naughty foods, or because, I overeat, or I don't exercise enough, or whatever reason we may have. When in reality, as we mentioned earlier, food is just one avenue that helps us cope with whatever we're feeling. So the whole idea behind the book, and it's targeted at people who have been dieting, on and off, who never feel like they're good enough physically, people who eat emotionally when they're stressed, when they're scared, when they're worried. And it's just realizing that when you learn how to deal with your emotions, when you feel good about yourself, you don't even need to resort to these coping mechanisms. You're actually okay. And the less you control, the easier it is. So it's completely counterintuitive for most people. What do you mean? Like, I don't have to watch what I eat? Like, what is that? You just want me to get fat? It's not that at all. It's quite the opposite, because you're no longer obsessed. You actually start enjoying life, and everything is not about like, oh, how much did I eat? How many calories? How much do I have to burn at the gym? And it's just all obsessive, which, by the way, is also something that used to get in the way of me and putting myself out there for jobs I wanted, because I was too busy worrying about how I looked or what I ate, or just being unhappy and self-loathing. That's very time consuming, by the way.
Yeah, this sounds like an awesome resource for anyone who is stuck in that sort of that negative language around I'll be happy when, and
yeah.
So I'll definitely, I don't know if you have a landing page or something we can link up in the show notes, or maybe someone can just get on your email list and
yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll send you the details for that.
Yeah. Fadela, I do want to be mindful of the time, but I've got some sort of rapid fire questions I want to go through at the end here. So just the first thing that comes to your mind and, a sentence or two for each one, that would be great.
Let's do it.
The first one is, what do you wish you'd been told early in your 20s?
Don't take yourself so seriously.
The next one is, what is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Connecting with people, really connecting, being open to new relationships.
I love that. All right, this next question is, I asked this question I asked these to everyone, but when I asked Jacob Sokol, who's also a coach, I'm sure you might know.
Yeah, of course.
He said to me, like, man, are you a coach or something? And you'll probably find out why, but it is, if I had to ask you one question for this to be the most important thing for quarter lifers to hear, what would that question have to be and how would you answer it?
Oh, wow. Okay. So one question.
Yeah, one thing I would need to ask you for this to be the most important thing for someone to hear.
Okay. What would it take for you to feel good enough?
And how would you answer that?
I think the answer would be to just realize that I am good enough right now.
I love that. Fadela, I have one more question, but before I get to that, what's the best way for someone to get hold of you if they want to find out more about your work or just follow what you're doing online or find out more about the book and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so definitely connect with me on social media. So it's Fadela Hilali. On Facebook, you can connect with me personally or check out my Facebook public profile page, or go on my website, shoot me an email. The website is pryanas.com, so prayyanas.com.
Yeah, and I'll link up all of that in the show notes. Fadela, before I get to the final question, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on today and for sharing your experience with working through some of this stuff yourself, and now translating that into helping clients work through the same stuff, and also for experimenting with what you wanted to do and seeing that you loved the charity work, but recognizing that what wasn't exactly what you wanted to do.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just want to acknowledge you for that. And the final question I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
I would say definitely pick one thing. I know they have many, many things that they like and want to focus on, but I would say just pick one and start with that. But commit to it. Even if you're committing for 1 week, give it 1 week where you're just going to research that and dedicate your undivided attention to that one thing.
I love it. Fadela Hilali, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 45 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And a big thanks once again to Fadela Hilali for coming on the show and sharing a bit about her story and also her expertise on this great topic. Now, if you like this one or you know someone who would benefit, please share it around on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it was the whole thing of we can design our dream life while still loving our lives as they are right now. You are already enough. Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in the show at briantier.com/045. And if you want to get more episodes like this as soon as they come out, make sure you go subscribe at quarterlifecomeback.com. Thanks again for joining me this week. And until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.